It's rep round this week. We've got the Origin to finish off on Sunday. How do we like the teams? And the New South Wales team made a few changes.
Mate, they've made a lot of changes. Given they lost by 6 points, it's a fair few.
Too many, you think?
Oh, look, I think it just shows that New South Wales have admitted that they got it wrong, straight up. They've got it wrong and they tried to rectify it.
I think it's a better team than Origin one. I like the changes. And they hope to rectify, as Krul said, the mistakes that they got wrong in game one. It's the last Sunday night Origin, guys. Back to Wednesdays next year. So,
what about the battle of the coaches? How did we see that in Origin 1? Was it just a clear victory to Billy? Did he outsmart him, or does Freddy come back in game 2? How have we seen all that play out with the rookie in there?
I think Billy definitely outcoached him. I think New South Wales have admitted by their team selections for game 2 that they got it wrong in their books. Like, that New South Wales' biggest critic has been their own coach, because he's the one that has gone from spending months to finalise his first team, and then a loss by 6 points, he's made mass changes. And he's gone into this game to thinking he's picked a better side, and he probably has picked a better side. But if they don't aim up this time, it's Brad Fittler that's the bloke that has to wear the result.
But the hallmark of the first result was they were guessing themselves, and it goes into this game now, and the 7 changes have just reinforced that they're still second-guessing themselves.
Are we jumping the gun, though? What if New South Wales come out and carve Queensland up in Perth?
But what if
is he then the opposite?
Of course he is.
Exactly.
Of course he is. But that's the way it works.
You don't see that happening, but do you?
No, I don't think so. No.
We're also, you asked the question, did Billy outcoach him in the first game? Well, Billy did. Queensland outcoached him. You know, they had.
I think Billy out-selected.
Not just that, they outplayed Dave. They played with greater momentum. They greater speed of the ruck. The pressure that they put on Nathan was match defining. They've gone out with a plan, and the plans worked. And I kind of think, like, Billy was a first-up coach, so you knew nothing about what style he was going to come with, other than the fact he spent his whole career playing at Melbourne. And he's got Cameron Smith on his staff.
Where it was all about
you don't have to be a genius to work out what they're going to do.
It's all about dominating the ruck, and that's what they did. And New South Wales were unprepared for it, which was the biggest concern.
Yeah, no doubt. And they pulled their pants down. And you talk to any of the players post-match, and they were actually, like someone like Jack Whiten. I'm so disappointed Jack Whiten is not playing in game 2, because you should have seen the disappointment on his face and the way he explained how disappointed he was, how slow to the mark in wising up and waking up. Queensland were hoodwinking them at the ruck. Yeah. And that's where the response is going to come from. It's going to be fascinating around the officialdom of the game. Of game 2.
What about Freddy's response after the game to the referees? Was it warranted in terms of the ruck? He clearly wasn't happy with the way the ruck was.
I'm led to believe it wasn't warranted. I'm led to believe that the speed of the ruck, the play the balls in Origin 1 were faster than they are in an average NRL game. And the difference between New South Wales and Queensland, I think it came down to like 0.2 of a second.
Well, here it feels the slow play the balls.
That's pretty slow.
Yeah,
but Queensland dominated the bigger tackles.
Exactly, Paul, and that's where the difference was. In maybe a dozen tackles throughout the match that are really critical moments in the game, that's where Queensland did their job on New South Wales, which is just smart coaching.
Yeah, it is.
It's not overdoing it, but it's doing it the right way.
It's also a 3-game series, and when Freddy walks into that press conference, he knows he's got to use that opportunity. He's been around the block long enough. He's got to use that opportunity to try and correct some wrongs for the next 2 games.
Aren't you surprised that New South Wales were caught in that area? As a former player, surely winning the ruck, slowing the play of the ball down, the fact that the Origin is notorious for lack of penalties, how do New South Wales get surprised by Queensland's tactics? That's the bit I have trouble grasping.
But they should have acknowledged that throughout the game they were getting more time on the player.
At the very least, they should have been looking for a break.
Because you can see there, Queensland had acknowledged it early. Tino Vasula-Malawi actually looking at the referee while holding the player down, knowing he's got a few more seconds. So have a look at this. Karen Munster comes in, they're turning around looking at the referee. Waiting for the referee.
But that's their great trick, isn't it? They do that every weekend.
I didn't see one New South Wales player do that.
Why? But that's the issue.
I get it.
Why?
I know what you're saying.
Why is New South Wales only just discovering this during the game?
Yeah.
Like Brad Fittler's got.
That's where Brandy admitted that. He was disappointed last night.
Brad Fittler's in his 13th game there as an Origin coach. Billy Slater was in his first as an Origin coach. Billy Slater was on top of it. Freddy wasn't.
But it's smart by Freddy because in game 2, the referee's they're going to do their video.
I still think
they're going to watch this.
I think it comes down to the players too, Kenny. But like James Tedesco's the captain. Where's the leadership in picking it up? I said to you before, Jack Whiten, that he spoke about it in the dressing rooms after the game that he was completely deflated. To your point, that they didn't pick it up.
But Dave, I remember talking way back when Wayne Bennett and Wayne Pearce were Origin coaches, and back in the I wrote about this. New South Wales were jumping off the line very quickly, and Queensland got their pants pulled down game 1. Bennett had them training all week for game 2 to get it ready, right? Okay, to get it done. And they were clearly going to cheat. He said to me, we'll only do it if it's necessary. But the one thing he said, you can't put it on them halfway through a game if you haven't practiced it. You've got to practice it. So if it's happening out there and you see, OK, we need to respond to it, you send the message out, boys, time to lay on a bit longer. If you haven't practiced it, it's very hard for me as a rep team coming together to do that.
I can guarantee that.
Ashley Klein's been reappointed as the lead referee.
What New South Wales have done now, though, is they've changed the dummy half. They've brought Appy in specifically, obviously, to play a Penrith style of attack. Nathan knows what he's doing. 3 of the key members in the spine are now from Penrith. 5 of the 7, is it? Either Burton and To'o and the 2 halves, and they're all from the one club. You've got Liam Martin, you've got the hooker. There's 8 of them, basically. And they're going to go out and they're going to play like Penrith. That's what the plan will be.
One thing they'll need to do is protect Cleary. That game 1, the pressure on Cleary was evident, and his kicking game wasn't where it usually is because Queensland had identified this. Look at this. This is the energy. This was the intent that Queensland just beat New South Wales to the punch. Yeah. He had pressure. He had Queenslanders all over him every time he went to kick that ball, and it showed. So
if you go back and look at these one by one, though, there was I think, was there 13 kick pressures? There was 9 where they actually made contact. And if you go back specifically and look at each individual one of those contact moments, only 3 would have warranted a penalty in NRL. And as we all know, you get away with more in Origin.
Absolutely, yeah.